So I've created a video for this portion of the training because you're going to need to be able to do things on your laptop as I show you. And when you participate in a Zoom session, you can't actually join a new Zoom session and click the buttons that you're going to need to click. So for this portion, you're going to just kind of watch this video and pause as needed so that you can actually try some of the things that I'm showing you, that you can get your settings set right and move at the pace that you need to move. I wanted to provide you some screen recording tips that I think are kind of helpful whenever you are either preparing a video ahead of time or whenever you are doing a screen recording or sharing your screen. So you probably just heard a notification come across my computer. I get a lot of notifications. So whenever I'm doing a video or a screen recording or a screen share, I like to make sure to shut those notifications off. So on my MacBook, in the upper right-hand corner of my menu bar, there is a line, 3 lines with 3 dots next to them. And if you click on that, it pulls your notifications down. So one of the things you can do is if you actually scroll down and pull the notification pane down, you're going to be able to select Do Not Disturb. And I would highly recommend that you do that anytime you start to do a screen recording or a Zoom session where you know you're going to be sharing your screen. It helps eliminate distractions for you, and it is going to clean up your screen. And that way people aren't going to see things that you might either not want them to see, like a notification of an IEP meeting or something from your husband or whatever. So I always do that. And then you can do your screen recordings a couple of different ways. If you press Command-Shift-5 on your MacBook, Command-Shift-5 is going to bring up screen recording option. You can also use Canvas Studio to do your screen recordings, and you can record things on your iPad. Another pro tip about using Zoom is you can actually start a Zoom meeting. Don't add any participants. Just record the meeting, and then you can share your screen. You can share your iPad screen in the Zoom meeting, and when it records, it's actually going to record your video in it as well. So you can do that in Canvas Studio, but you can also do it by kind of hacking a Zoom session. Check your microphone. Do a sample recording first and make sure it's getting your voice. And if it's not, go into wherever it shows the microphone or sound or input settings and make sure that it's detecting the microphone you want to use. You want to make sure to go to your google.com and sign into your Pattonville Google account. And from there, you want to click on your Google Apps menu, or what we sometimes call the waffle. Click on that and find Zoom in your waffle. When you first click and open that up, it's going to probably, if you haven't done it from there before, it's going to ask you to authorize your account. So you want to go ahead and go through the steps of doing that. And it was a while since I've done it. I think you're going to get some emails to verify it's you, and it may ask your permission and all these things. But you want to get your Pattonville email associated with our Pattonville Zoom. That way, whenever you try to create your meetings within Canvas or in other areas, it's going to all be connected in the right way. So I actually just clicked on Zoom for my waffle, and what it did was it opened up my Zoom preferences. So and it opened them up in the web browser, okay? And when I'm looking through here, I can see that I've got different things on the left. I've got my profile, and this is where I can actually change my picture. Although if you have connected your Pattonville Google account, this picture is actually my Google picture. So it is pulling that picture in. And if you want your Google picture to look the same everywhere, then you would just change it in Google, and then it's going to update it in Zoom. So, or you could change just your Zoom picture. I would recommend that you keep your Zoom profile picture like an actual photo of you. I think that it probably is going to help connect students and teachers and by seeing each other's faces. I just think that would help. Not to say that you couldn't do a Bitmoji or a fun avatar or something if that's really what you want to do, but I think sometimes, those are fun and create personality, but we definitely want to feel real, and I think our real photos can do that for kids sometimes. So just some advice. Okay, so in my profile, I can come in here and I would just look through these menus, just see what's there. I really didn't change much about my profile. But then when I click on meetings, this is where you can see any upcoming meetings, you can see previous meetings, and you can see your personal meeting room. Everybody has a personal meeting room. And if you click on your personal meeting room, you do have this invite link that stays the same all the time. And some people just use that for every Zoom meeting that they do. I think that you are a little limited in that you can't restrict it to certain users when you use your personal meeting room. But it's something you could certainly do in a pinch. If you don't want to have to set up a whole new meeting for something, you can just use your personal meeting room link and that would work as well. Okay, if I go to upcoming meetings, I can actually click on schedule a new meeting right now and arrange that within the browser. You can also do this from the Zoom app on your laptop, which is normally how I do it. But if you click on recordings, this is where you're going to see any cloud recordings that you have saved. So I did a sample one just to see how it worked the other day. And this actually allows me to share this if I wanted to with a link or watch it back or whatever. And you can search by date and different things. If you go to your Zoom settings in the browser, this is where you can control how you want your default settings for meetings to look for you. So I would definitely take a moment, pause the video after I kind of talk about a couple things here, and go through and look at what they are. The waiting room might be, I can tell that I modified this because it says modified. The waiting room is actually off by default because we figured some teachers would want to use the waiting room and some people don't. I know for me, I get a little, I don't know, when you're running a Zoom session, especially first time or the first few times, you feel a little bit, there's just a lot going on. And so if you have to worry about the waiting room, I've left people waiting in the waiting room and they've had to text me and be like, I'm here. So I would definitely think about how you want to use that. And then, try it on and then try it off and see kind of how you like it. If you're a counselor, you're going to probably be using the waiting room for sure. So if we set up a Zoom link where students can immediately see their counselor and they click it, you want them to go in the waiting room. So it just kind of depends on how you're using it. You do have some edit options and you can customize your waiting room. So if you click on customize, you can add a logo and you can add a meeting topic. I did not see a place where you could do this for each individual meeting. I think that when you customize your waiting room, it's for any meeting that you make. So it probably needs to be a little bit more general. Here, when you schedule a meeting, you can say, how you always want to start your meeting. So again, these are kind of like the defaults. This is what it's always going to be when you create a meeting. That being said, when you create a new meeting, you can say, okay, for this meeting, I want to turn this thing off or this thing on, and you can adjust it a little bit. But this is kind of like your almost global settings. So the chat room's on. I do want to tell you that in the meeting, you can control your chat settings and how people can participate in the chat. So you can have it so that participants can only message the host or can only message the host and everyone. So you can kind of control that. You can set it to auto save the chat so you don't have to worry about it. You can set a sound notification when someone joins or leaves. And you can play that sound for everyone or only the host and co-host. So I was just adding my participants into my meeting. I had the waiting room on and I had it set to get a ring when someone joined, and I would get a little ding dong and they'd be sitting in the waiting room waiting. So that is something that works. I just checked it. When we talk about the virtual background, you can have that on. I will say with your MacBook Airs, you can only use a virtual background if you have a green wall or green fabric behind you, a green screen. So just got to keep that in mind and understand also that having virtual backgrounds can help. I like having it on for students too, because, they may be in an environment where they're not comfortable showing anybody their environment. They could be in a hotel room and they don't want people to know that. So I think we probably should allow students to either have their cameras off or use a virtual background for that reason alone. But I will tell you, for you, the host on your MacBook, you're going to find that virtual background actually is kind of an energy hog, and you can only have the green screen. So I wouldn't be like obsessed with production value, especially when you first get going. So if I go to recording settings now, I can choose whether or not I want to allow hosts and participants to record the meeting to a local file. You can turn that on or off. You can turn off whether or not you have cloud recording, and you can control what gets recorded. So you can record only the active speaker and the shared screen. You can record all of these things, some of these things. You could just choose to record the shared screen and that's all. So you kind of have to think about what it is you're wanting to record. I know there's been questions about whether or not you should record the entire Zoom. I personally wouldn't. That's just my advice, unless you just want to have a record of the Zoom session. But I think what I would do, like I ran some virtual Zooms and people asked, are you going to record those? Well, I didn't, because they were 2 hours long and people all stopped and asked questions and we did things. And then what I did later is just made a shortened version of it as a video and allowed that to be available to people. So that's one way that you could think about that. We just want to make sure that if a student misses the Zoom session, they have access to the instruction in some way. So even if that means you just record part of the Zoom meeting or only the part where you're giving instruction, that's perfectly acceptable. You can click on reports, and here you can get usage reports for your meetings. So if you click on usage, you can select a date range, you can find a meeting that you want to get information about, you can click on your participants, and it'll actually show you some information about those participants. You can export this with meeting data, you can show unique users, and you can tell how long every participant was actually in the meeting. That may help with taking attendance. Basically, you need to just look through your settings, decide how you want things to be, and remember that just because you're setting it a certain way right now doesn't mean that you can't change it either right before when you create a meeting or when you're running a meeting. You can change a lot of these settings right in the moment. Let's talk about actually starting a meeting. Now you can do this from Canvas, or you can do this directly from your Zoom app on your computer. So if I open up the Zoom app on my laptop, I can come in here and I can go to the home button and I can start a new meeting right now. And you can start a meeting and add no participants and just play. So I would recommend that you do that right now so that you can click and play with some of the settings, okay? So you can just start a new meeting. You can schedule a meeting ahead of time. You can join a meeting, or you can share your screen. Okay, I'm going to look at the schedule right now. So before you start a new meeting, I'm just going to click on schedule. And when you go to schedule a meeting, you're going to give it a name, and you can change what it is. You can give it a time. You can make it recurring. You can turn the waiting room on or off. Now, if you had the waiting room on as your default, you have an opportunity to turn it off for this meeting. So you can control those things. You can choose how the video is set when someone joins, how the audio is set, and you can choose what calendar you want it to go to. You have some advanced options. You can allow only authenticated users to join, which means that they have to have a Pattonville email, so students or teachers. If you're going to do a Zoom session with parents, you obviously don't want that checked because then they won't be able to join. So think about that. And then here you can say whether or not you want it to record the meeting, and you can add alternative meeting hosts to your meeting here as well by adding their email. And then you just save to save that particular thing. Okay. If I go into if you wanted to get back to like the settings that we were looking at in the browser, right underneath your picture, that little gear, that's your settings, and that's going to allow you to go back to those global settings that we were looking at in the browser. Okay, so now's when I want you to go ahead and just create a new meeting. And you don't have to add a participant to this unless you want to. If you are working with a small group of people right now and you guys want to play with having each other be participants in practice, this is your time to do that. But I'm going to start a meeting and I'm going to show you my controls and I want you to play with the controls as needed. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click New Meeting. And now it's going to ask how you want to join. Always join with computer audio. And you'll notice at the bottom, and honestly, the first few times I did video conferencing or Zoom sessions, I felt intimidated by the things at the bottom. I don't know why. I had to just get over it I just sat and like one day opened up blank Zoom and I just clicked all the little buttons and that's what you're about to do. So down here, the very first icon is your microphone. Right now, I can mute myself or unmute myself. I can actually, right now I'm using my MacBook Pro microphone, but if you had other headphones plugged in, you could make sure to select the headphones. You could select how you want to hear things through the Zoom, whether you want to use headphones or your system. You can test your speaker and your microphone. If you are using a microphone, especially if you're using headphones that hang out of your ears and hang down, one thing I've noticed is that when I'm talking, and I move a lot when I talk, I can't help it, I got Italian background, if I am wearing a mic in my head that droops down, it hits my hair and it hits my thing and it's constant noise in my microphone. So it's a good idea to go ahead and test your microphone and run through that before you join or start a meeting or before you get into your flow, okay? And then with the video, if I click start my video, then it's going to show me on the video screen and I can come in here and choose whether or not I want to use my FaceTime camera or whether I want to use, maybe you've got a fancy camera and you want to use that camera instead. You can do that by choosing it here. You can choose a virtual background, but like I was saying, I would not be super concerned with production value right now. I would be more concerned with just what you're asking students to do in your Zoom sessions. But if you did want to have a virtual background, you can come here, and on your MacBook Air, you have to say you have a green screen, and you do indeed need to have something green behind you. So I'll be honest, I don't really play with virtual backgrounds. I just don't. I think I did one meeting where I had friends background, like the friends coffee shop in my background, or the office like window, like coffee, you can do what you want. But again, once I got into it, I felt like I was more effective just sharing my screen and playing a presentation that way because students are still going to see your video. So I wouldn't worry about that piece. Security. So right here, you can enable or disable your waiting room. Like if you forgot about it, you can always come down to security and do that. You can also say what your participants are allowed to do. So you can say whether or not they're allowed to share their screen, chat, rename themselves, unmute, and you can change that in the moment. So if you don't want them to rename themselves right away, then you could just turn it on when you're ready for that feature. Okay. And you can allow students to unmute themselves or not. You can say, no, I'm going to control that. So, and you can change that in the moment. So you don't have to feel like you have to have all of that locked and loaded and ready to go. Your participants button is going to pull up a participant's screen, and it will kind of put it on like a fourth of your screen. Now, that being said, you could absolutely, if you have an external monitor plugged into your laptop, which I'm not using right now, you could take this and just drag it to your external monitor so that you keep your participants always up around you. And I will say, when I did Zoom sessions, both as a host and a participant, it was really helpful to have an external monitor because I could put the chat up, I could put the participants up. If I were running breakout rooms, I could see the breakout rooms and I could see everything as I was doing stuff. So that is really helpful. But right now you're just going to kind of see it all show up on my computer screen. Okay? The chat. Let's talk about chat for a second. So this is the chat box. If I have participants in here right now, I can send messages to everyone, and you get some other options when you have people join. Click on your three dots where it says to everyone. You can say participants can chat with no one. You can just turn that chat off. Or you can say the host only, so they can just ask you questions, or everyone publicly. So these are all like things you can do, and you could share a file, or in the chat you can share a link to something. So if you had a Google Doc that you wanted everybody to type in, or you had a Google slide that you were assigning into breakout rooms, or a video you wanted them to watch, you can just link it right inside the chat. Or you could have everything loaded on your Canvas page and say, hey, we're going to be working inside of this Canvas page today. I want you to have that open as well. So in my my Zoom meeting right now, I've added 3 participants. I have a lot of devices going in my house right now. Anyway, okay. So I want you to notice my screen. I've got my participants here at the top, and I have certain controls that I can do. So I can go on to any of these participants, and I can ask to unmute them. I can ask them to start their video. I can make them the host or the co-host. So if you have a co-teacher join, you can actually make them the co-host like right in that moment. You can also allow them to record. You can rename them. So I actually renamed my participants with the Harry Potter characters because why not? Okay, you can put them back in the waiting room if you need to. You can also remove them. So these are things that you can do when your participants are in. And obviously you have some things that you can control. So like one of the things you can see here is gallery view. So I could put it on gallery view. I can pin a video or spotlight a video as well. Pinning the video just means it's not really going to move. I think when you spotlight a video, it makes sure that it's the only thing showing when you're doing a screen share. Okay. I have everything muted right now because I'm doing a QuickTime screen recording of a Zoom. So everything's muted just so I didn't get a bunch of feedback and stuff. You can switch back to speaker view. So that is a kind of a user preference. Your students are going to be able to change their view as well. So don't assume that their screens look exactly like yours. It's just something to kind of keep in mind. If I wanted to go ahead and share my screen, then what I would do is click and I can actually change the setting here. So I can say that one participant can share at a time, multiple participants can share simultaneously, or I can go into some advanced sharing options. I'm going to click just screen share right now. So, and when I do that, I have the option to show different things. So when I do a screen share, I can share my desktop. If you have an external monitor plugged into your laptop, which I do not right now, you would see a desktop 2. You can switch to a whiteboard mode. You can switch to an iPad via AirPlay. I will tell you this works at home. It does not yet work in the building, but we're working on getting that fixed. Or you can literally take your iPad and just like plug it in with your iPad cable to your laptop and actually share your iPad screen while you're Zooming. So I'll demonstrate that in a moment. I normally just share my desktop so that I can just like present a keynote presentation or actually show someone how to do something on the screen. So that is one way. If you were sharing any kind of video or playing a video across a Zoom meeting, I would say you're going to lose quality for sure, and it's not going to be perfect. But if you are going to play a video, you have the option to optimize your screen share for a video clip and share your computer sound, which is what you would need to do if you were playing a video. If I go into advanced, there are the slides as virtual background as beta. But again, I think that just sharing your screen is going to be all you really need to do. I can click record and actually record this session. And when I do, it'll give me the option to record on my computer or record to the cloud. If you have authorized your Pattonville account with your Zoom account, I would record to the cloud. If you don't see the breakout room button, it's just probably because it's hidden. But if you click on more, it'll show up there. Or if I turn my participant window off and I drag my screen full, the breakout room shows up. So when I click on breakout rooms, this is where I can set how I want my breakout rooms to go. And I only have 3 participants, but when you have more, if you have 20 participants, you're going to be able to like up this number. And if you're thinking, I feel like I can't divide quickly under pressure, you don't have to. It'll tell you how many participants are going to go in a room. So right now I have 3 participants in this particular Zoom session. If I wanted to put them all in one room, that's what I would do. If I wanted to put them in 2 rooms, I could. So that means I would have 1 to 2 participants per room. If I put them in 3 rooms, then that means that I'm going to have 1 participant per room. So that's a thing you can do as well, right? Just put people in their own breakout room just to set a timer. So I'm going to do that for this example. So I'm going to just say create breakout rooms, and I'm going to do automatically because it doesn't matter because I'm putting them all in their own, but you could manually assign people to breakouts. So then I'm going to say create breakout rooms, and then it puts them each in their own breakout room. And then as the host, I now have some control over what I want them to do, right? So I could come in here and I could actually move Ron to a different breakout room. I could recreate the breakout rooms. I can add a room. So if I wanted to keep an extra room right now for like a conference room, or it has been suggested that that's a good thing to do if you need a student to be able to go into a space by themselves or go into a space with a co-teacher, you could have an extra breakout room always just kind of waiting so you could put people in it. So that's another thing you could do. When you put students in breakout rooms, you have the option to move them into the room automatically, so you can force it. With adult learners, I feel like it, or even some, high school kids, I think it's okay to give them like that autonomy to click on, like, choose the breakout room. It gives them a choice. It makes them feel that they have a choice even though they really don't. Or sometimes it may be beneficial to have students wait because they may want to wait and like let everybody leave, and then they may want to ask you a question confidentially. So I know that could be a reason why you might want to let them choose to go into the breakout room, or you can move them automatically. You can allow participants to return to the main session at any time or not. So if you're going to stay in the main session and allow students to come back and ask you questions, you could do that, or you could not. Breakout rooms close after so many minutes. So when I said you could use breakout rooms just to set a timer, if you wanted students to maybe read something quietly, then you put them in their own breakout room, set the timer for how long you want them to read, and when that time limit comes up, it puts them all back in the main session. You can also notify the host when the time's up, or you can just set a countdown timer. This countdown timer is nice. I would say 30 seconds is a great timer. You can do 60 seconds or 120 seconds, but I think it's just nice because it helps you know when it's about to wrap up, especially if you have kids participating in conversations. Okay, so if I'm just going to do 1 minute here, and I'm going to do a 10-second countdown. Okay, and then and I'm going to move them automatically, and then I'm going to say open all rooms, and then they're just going to go, right? They're going to go, and I would make sure to tell students the first time you do this, okay, you're about to go. In a moment, you're going to see, your partner or your group, and you want to give them instructions about what you want them to do before sending them out. You may also want to say, for this session, it's not necessary to see each other. Don't focus on that. I want you all working in the shared Google Doc, and that's what you all need to have open on your screens. We just want to hear each other. And you may need to give them those instructions. So you can say open all rooms, and then they're just going to go. So I just watched all these devices go into their breakout room. And then one of the things that you can do as the host, once breakout rooms are going, so I want you to kind of see what my screen looks like here. Notice that I can see how long we're in progress. I can join any of these breakout rooms, and I can broadcast a message to everybody in the breakout. So you could give them a discussion prompt to put here. So if that way they get in the breakout room, wait, what were we supposed to do? You could have the instructions broadcast to everybody. And if you have those in a document, you could copy paste and then have everything locked and loaded and ready to go. I can actually close the rooms before the time is up, but I know that I set a timer for 1 minute, so they're going to come back to me in 1 minute. And if you can have your participant window and your breakout room window and your chat all open on an external monitor, then you can tell what's going on a little bit easier. So I would recommend that. The host gets this message, hey, time's up. Do you want to keep it open or do you want to close it now? I want to close it now. And then what's going to happen now is all my participants are going to come back into my main session. And if I close it now, that's when that countdown timer starts. So now here they come, and they're back in my main session. So that's kind of what controls you have with the breakout room. So one way that you can actually connect your iPad to your laptop, and this works really great when you're at home especially, is if you click on iPhone, iPad via AirPlay. So I'm going to click on that one. Okay, and then I'm going to say share, and then it's going to give me instructions. It says on your iPhone or iPad, Make sure you're connected to the right Wi-Fi network, and then tap screen mirroring, and then choose Zoom, Tammy's MacBook Pro. So on my iPad, what I want to do is swipe down the control center, and then where it says screen mirroring, that's where you're going to look for your computer. So I'm going to tap on screen mirroring, and this is just like if you were like connecting to an Apple TV at school. I'm going to choose my Zoom, and then it's going to show my iPad on my Zoom session. Then I can now do things on my iPad and share them in my Zoom session with my participants. And I could write things in my message. So I could be like, work out an equation. And my participants are going to see everything that I'm writing on my iPad. So I have had a lot of success joining via AirPlay with my iPad to my Zoom session when I'm at home. Now, I will say when I'm at school, I was able to plug in with my wire and connect to my MacBook Air, no problem while I was at school. So I would test it, find the one that works for you. If you did want to plug in with your cable, you just need to take your charging cable for your iPad and you want to plug it into your laptop, and then choose connect with cable. You will probably have to agree to trust the device. It may ask you on your iPad if you want to trust the device.